William Ruto has his priorities right?
Well, you know, for the president, the number one priority is to maintain political stability, economic stability, and defense and security stability. Because without those three, then you don't have a country. So that would be his first priority. And then on the issue of IBC, it's still, I don't know that there's anybody in Kenya who really understands why we don't have IBC. I mean, the commissioners, because we've gone through a lot of processes. There was a piece of legislation, the president signed it into law, and then there was an IBC selection committee, and then Mr. Raila Odinga said, wait a minute, I'm unhappy with the composition. There was the NADCO conversation, so there was again a new law came into force. Then when the team started working, one of the parties who is said to be representing an unparliamentary political party wants to represent a parliamentary party, so there is a matter in court. And it's one can easily assume that we have some special interests and cartels that I don't want IBC to be constituted or reconstituted today. And during a prior conversation, we said that in some of these national interest legislations, maybe we should have a limit on how far legislation can go, or we can agree that the composition has to take place within a certain framework. Because even the matters today in the High Court around IBC, the committee, as well as the Court of Appeal, even if we dispense with them today, Kenya's got about 55 million people. Another person will crawl from the woodwork, he will go to the High Court, and he will say, wait a minute, my interests have not been taken care of. In fact, one of the persons who went to court, I understand, he says, when I look at this selection committee, it does not reflect the face of Kenya, it does not reflect the youth, it doesn't capture people with disabilities. So you can actually get a very valid reason, and you will go to court, and the courts will give you a hearing. So there is a risk that this matter will go on till April 2027. And you remember what Justice Kriegler and others said about IBC, that you need to have the team in place in good time. While people may say that the actual IBC is run by the secretariat, but you need these commissioners to really understand what is going on. So it appears that people who are happy with the status quo of where IBC is. And then at number three, you speak about what we should expect this year. But even before discussing that, one would have expected that all public officers of rank and cabinet secretaries last year or at the beginning of this year would have given us a report card to tell us these were my plans for 24 and that this is what I've achieved. Apart from Musalia Mudavadi, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, I've not seen any other Cabinet Secretary or Principal Secretary giving us a report card on what they've done. And failure to give us that information, a normal Kenyan will form the opinion that we are flying blind. Because when you've been given a responsibility, you need to give us a report card. Even if you don't like soccer or any sports, but there's a scoreboard somewhere. So you check in, you see the scoreboard, you see the scores. But from Musalia Mudavadi, he gave an elaborate presentation of what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has achieved and as a Prime Cabinet Secretary. So there's a valid expectation that every other Cabinet Secretary and Principal Secretary will do the same. And then we must proactively promote Kenya as an FDI destination to address the issues that Kathy has raised. We need to make Kenya a very interesting proposition that anybody who wants to do business in Africa, they come to Kenya for they think of Kenya. If you're thinking of expanding to Africa and the Middle East, Kenya must be number one. Number two, we must proactively promote the sale of our products, teas and coffees, even promote Kenya as a tourist destination. Understand the numbers of the number of tourist arrivals that come to Kenya as a nation. You cannot even compare them to the people who go to a city in France. So we need to do that. And third, we must create those international opportunities and export Kenya in truckloads. Some people say that government must create opportunities in Kenya. But I think if there's an opportunity to get international assignments, let's do that. And then finally, and this goes to Arnold Maliba, because he sits in a position of influence, I don't know why in Kenya we speak largely three languages. You speak your mother tongue, English, and Kiswahili. So failure to learn many languages has made that Kenya is losing opportunities. Like for instance, if you go to Angola, Angola is craving for people who can teach English. You've got a surplus of teachers in Kenya. Earlier on you said that the majority of them are unemployed. But if they only spoke Portuguese, they would go and work in these other countries. So in the context of the globalization of markets and productions, we must learn to speak many more languages. In fact, it's because of, as a result, that if you go to the UN, these international bodies, you hardly find Kenyans. But people from West Africa, whose language, whose lingua franca is French, they actually speak English. But if you go to the streets of Nairobi, how many Kenyans speak French, Arabic, Portuguese? That is something that we must embrace. In other words, when the Kenya Kwanza promised the pesa mfukoni, the economic indicators are okay, the interest rates, the inflation, but what Kenyans are asking for, while those economic indicators are very good, lakini kuna pesa mfukoni. So those are the challenges that must be addressed. You remember, even Joe Biden has done, did very well with the economy, but when the voters went to their pockets, they said, well, the economic indicators are very solid, but hakuna pesa mfukoni.
Yes, Bwana Maliba, you come from a privileged position, serving a high rank within the party, UDA, which is the ruling party.
And is in charge of policy.
Yes, but if you look at the priorities from outside, what we see, it's number one, fight Gachagua, number two, counter